I'd like to say good evening and welcome to Newport News Church of Christ. Appreciate everyone being here tonight. Thank you for your attendance tonight. And we're going to go ahead and get into our study. Into it, so we'll try to wrap it up tonight. Will be the last Wednesday night Bible study for this year, as we will suspend classes over the next couple of weeks. Christmas holiday next weekend, and then the following weekend, New Year's Eve. So we'll give those times for some family away, for some family time, and much needed break at the end of the year. So this will be it. This will be our last time on Wednesday evening together. All right, so we want to have some more thoughts on this idea of submission that we were looking at last week, that we were just kind of broaching and getting into as we were looking at the idea of submission. And we talked about, just go back over, we talked about Jesus, he submitted. We talked about that incident in Luke chapter 2, verse 51, through the time of, we call it the years of obscurity, where Jesus was at the temple at the age of 12, and his parents came back and find him there later there in discussions and talk with the doctors and those of his day, and reminded them that he had to be about his father's business. But after that, he submitted and went back home with his parents, and we know that he grew in stature and wisdom and favor with God and with man. So he grew up just like any other young boy would do, but yet still, he reminds us there at 12, we get a glimpse and get a snapshot to let us know that he was God, and that even from the beginning, even as a child, he was going to be about the Father's business, but he did submit to his parents. We see the disciples in Luke chapter 10 and verse 17, after the disciples on the limited commission, as they came back and reported with great joy that they had powers over demons, and this is the power that God had given them. And Jesus cautioned them and said, don't get caught up with that. Don't let that go to your head, that you had powers over demons, but yet still, but the greater thing is your name written in heaven, is your name recorded in heaven. That's what they need to be worried about, because the power wasn't because of them, it was because of what God did, and as God was bringing into Satan's kingdom, that he allowed them to have that dominion, have that submission of demons to them. And so we'll see that in Luke chapter 10. We see citizens should submit to the government. Paul reminds us of that. Go to Romans chapter 13, verse 1. Romans chapter 13 and 1. Paul encourages us to submit to the government. Romans chapter 13 and 1. Somebody have that. Read that.
Let every soul be subject unto the higher power, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Okay,
Paul's letting us know that those powers are ordained of God. God is the key of the center of justice and of order in our lives. And so Paul says it's right for us to submit to those leaders because they are of God. They have been ordained of God. In verse 5 it says, wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. So we are subject to the authorities. And we'll talk about in our lesson tonight, there are some exceptions to that, but Paul encourages that. Looking at Titus 3 and 1, Titus 3 and verse 1. Titus 3 1, and somebody get 1 Peter 2 and 13. Titus 3 and 1.
Titus 3:1, put them in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey magistrates, to be ready to do every good work.
Okay, all right. So again, Paul puts us in mind that it is right, it is proper, it is fitting that we should obey magistrates and obey those that are in law over us. Because if we don't do that, if we don't obey the laws, if we don't obey the rules, what do we have if we are not willing to obey laws and rules? What kind of society do we have if we don't obey any kind of laws, any kind of rules? We have anarchy. It's anarchy. That is the absence of government, absence of law is anarchy. We have lawlessness. And anywhere in the Bible does it advocate lawlessness? Anywhere in the Bible advocate lawlessness? No, nowhere in the Bible does it advocate that we live a lawless life or that lawless. In fact, Paul goes as far as saying that was the law for us? Who's the law for?
Lawbreakers.
The lawless. The law is for the lawless. What was the law given for? To point out what's wrong, to let us know what's right, let us know what's wrong. The law was there to point out what's wrong, and it's for the lawless. And so it is right for us to maintain order in our society by submitting to leaders and authority. 1 Peter 2 and 13. 1 Peter 2 and 13. See here, Peter's admonishment in 1 Peter 2 and 13.
Submit yourself to every ordinance of man, but the Lord's sake, whether it be to the kings as supreme.
Okay, all right. So again, we see that submission. Remember when they brought a coin to Jesus at one time, and Jesus held up the coin. Whose subscription was on that coin that they brought to Jesus? Caesar. What did he say? Render to Caesar was the Caesar. Give to God what belongs to God. So we give to the government what they are due. We give them the respect. There are exceptions, and we'll talk about that tonight. So citizens should submit to the government. The universe will submit to Jesus. 1 Corinthians 15 and 27 and Ephesians 1:22. 1 Corinthians 15 and 7. The universe will submit to Jesus. 1 Corinthians 15 and 7. How does it read? 1 Corinthians 15.
After that, we were singing, wait, you said,
Let's see. Yeah. Excuse me. 1 Corinthians. 16. 1 Corinthians. No, that's 15:27. I'm sorry. 15:27.
for he hath put all things under his feet. For when he said all things are put under him, it is manifest that he is accepted, which he put all things under him.
Okay, all right, so the universe will be subject unto God. We get over in Ephesians chapter 1 and 22, where all things have been put under Jesus Christ, even unto the church, and he has been made over to be the head over all things unto the church, the fullness of which filleth all and all. And this was done. When was this done? When was all these things put under Jesus? When was all this control put under Jesus? When did that happen?
At his resurrection.
All right, as Paul would say, when he raised him from the dead. When he raised him from the dead with the power of God, he raised him from the dead and made him, and Ephesians 1:21, made him to sit at his own right side, far above principalities, power, dominions, might, and everywhere, every name that is named, not only in this world, but that is to come, and have made him and give him to be the head over all things, that put all things under his feet, even unto the church, the fullness and fullness, all in all. So the earth and is going to be, the universe will submit to Jesus because all things have been put under his feet. Paul says that everything has been put under Jesus' feet. And if we can't take Paul's word, let's take Jesus' word. Matthew 28, what did Jesus say before he left? He said, what had been given to him? All power has been given unto me. Where? And on earth. So when he was here, he came down from heaven. He came to earth. He went down into the lower part. He bound that up. He came up victorious from death and the grave. So he said, all power has been given to me in heaven and in earth. And then Paul said, and God had raised him from the dead with the power, and raised him from the dead and put everything under his feet and given him to be the head over all things. So the universe will submit to Jesus. In Thessalonians, when Paul talks about, when you good trouble, rest with us, what he said, you know, when he described what's going to happen at the judgment, and all those things are going to happen because the earth is going to submit to the will of God the Father and to the judgment of Jesus Christ, his Son. So the universe will submit. Unseen spiritual things will submit to Jesus. 1 Peter 3 and 22. 1 Peter 3 and 22. Unseen spiritual things will submit to Jesus. 1 Peter 3 and 22.
Who is gone into heaven and is on the right hand of God. Angels and authorities and powers are made subject unto him.
Again, there's that theme. Everything is subject to him. He has gone back to heaven, sits on the right hand, and everything is subject to him. God has basically turned over everything to his Son and said, put everything under his feet, have given him control and dominion. So everything will be subject to Jesus and will submit to him. Christians should submit to church leaders. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, 15 and 16. Christians should submit to leadership within the church. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 15.
I beseech you, brethren, ye know the house of Stephanus, that it is the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the ministry of the saints. That ye submit yourselves unto such, and to every one that helpeth with us and laboreth.
All right, you submit yourself unto such, and he gives us an example of those of the first fruits of those that were the early converts there in Achaia, that you submit yourselves unto such, and to everyone that helpeth with us and laboreth. Hebrews 13 and 17. Christians should submit to the leadership in the body.
Obey, excuse me, obey them that have rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, and they must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you.
Okay, all right. So again, in the church, obey the leadership within the church so that they can do it with joy and not with grief. Laborers want to be able to labor in joy as we're looking out for the soul. We're watching out for the soul of men and women and brothers and sisters in the church. And leaders want to do that with joy and not with grief, because people are chiding against them and going against them and always coming against them or providing opposition. We want to labor with joy because we are looking at your soul and we are held in an account. Right? And then we see, as we're talking about in this lesson, wives should submit to their husband, as we see in Colossians 3:18, Titus 2:5, 1 Peter 3:5, and in the text that we're looking at, Ephesians 5:22 and 24. The church should submit to Jesus in Ephesians 5 and 24. The church should submit to Jesus. Ephesians 5 and 24. The church should submit to Jesus.
Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives lead to their own husbands in everything.
Okay, so he gives us that example. Just like, Christ is the head of the church is subject to Christ. And so in that sense, the wives should follow that same example, that same pattern, and be in submission to their own husband, because the church is subject to Christ. The church doesn't do anything in and of itself. It does those things that are approved by Christ. It does those things that are given to us in Scripture by Jesus Christ. The servants should submit to their masters. Titus 2 and 9, and also Paul will talk about that as well. Titus 2 and 9. Servants submit to their masters.
Servants have to be submissive to their own masters. Everything they're well pleasing, not argumentative.
Okay, all right. So they're to be well pleasing, not argumentative, and submit to their masters. 1 Peter 2 and 18. 1 Peter 2, chapter 2 and verse 18.
Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the forward.
Okay, so and that goes for us even on our jobs and our secular careers. We should submit. Even not only do we have we have some good bosses and some good supervisors that are good people that look out for us and help us. It's easy to be in submission to them. But what about, as Peter said, those that are forward, those that are crooked, those that are bent, those that are always skirting the line between what's good and what's not good? We have to be submissive to them too. It's easy to be submissive to the nice and the good boss, but we have to be submissive to those others. We have to be watchful of them and not let them cause us to sin or anything, but we still owe them submission. We don't disrespect them just because they're not right. We let God deal with that. We let God deal with the fact that they may not be right or doing things right, but we still we honor God because it's not them. Who are we really submitted to when we submit to our bosses, when we submit to our jobs? Who does the Bible say we're really submitted to? We're submitted to the Lord. So we look past that person that's the supervisor. We look past the CEO of the company. We look past them. And so that way we don't take their abuses, we don't take it personal. Because I'm not working for you. I'm working for the Lord. I'm not working for you. Yes, you are here. You're the person in charge, but I'm not working for you. I'm working as if I'm working for the Lord. So I can look past you, and I'm setting my focus on the Lord, so I can deal with the things that you do here. And as Jesus was saying, who should we be fearing? Yes. He said, don't fear those that can do what? Get a body. You can say stuff to me, but Greg, you can take my job. Good. Because when you believe in the Lord, it's like, okay, if they took my job, then it was time for me to go. And there's something better over here for me. So that's how we look at our perspective. We're like, it's time for me to go. I'm not working for you. I'm working for the Lord. I'm doing those things as if I'm working for the Lord. Brother Greg.
Correct, it's always good to remember, the Bible will have us recognize what's first come first.
Yeah.
Always putting first things first, making sure we prioritize. Christ is the primary, the person you're working for is the secondary. We don't switch those two. So,
Yeah.
While I do work for you on one hand, yet there's a primary person above you and beyond you that I have to serve. So even if you do wrong, I'm compelled by him to do that which is right in this situation, and to honor you in such a position, as well as to submit, because in submitting to you, I'm submitting to him, even in the line of this treatment.
Yes, sir.
So those Christians certainly would have learned that in the first century, that they was facing persecution and things like that.
I'm glad you said that. Flip it around, because sometimes we see people jump and hop for their bosses more than they ever do for the Lord. Lord say come in, they boss say come in on the weekend, come in on Saturday, and do all this extra time and keep you away from the Lord's people, and you do it. You're not happy about it, but you do it. But then when we say, come up here and do this, and come up here and do that, why the hell you got to schedule this? You want to do it for us. And we're doing it in a spiritual sense. We're doing things that are right and things that are going to help you spiritually, but you do it for them. Because they got a check. They got a check. They got that almighty dollar. So we do it for that. But we need to flip that around. We're doing it for the Lord. The Lord will take care of us. The Lord will survive, will provide for us if we seek first the kingdom and his righteousness and work for the Lord and not for the boss and the almighty dollar. So servants should submit to their masters. Christians should submit to God. We need to submit to God. Hebrews 12:9. We need to submit to be submissive to God. Hebrews 12:9.
Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which correct us and gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of the Spirit?
Okay, all right. So we've had, furthermore, we've had fathers of our flesh who corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather subject unto the Father of the Spirit and live? We need to be subjected unto God, because he's going to help us to live. We've been subjected to parents and physical parents here on the flesh, but so much more. We can do that. The Hebrew writer says we can do it to God. James 4:7, being submissive to God. James 4:7.
Therefore, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you.
All right. Therefore, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. So as we look at all these scriptures all together, we notice that none of these relations are reversed. For example, masters are never told to submit to servants. Jesus is never told to submit to the church, and so forth. The constant use of the idea of submission in scriptures illustrates basically a one-way submission according to how God has arranged the order and authority. That's what we're looking at. The order and authority as how God has arranged it. So he's talking to the church, submit to Christ. We talk about wives, submit to your husbands. We talk about children, submit to your parents. We talk about masters, servants, submit to your master. And so we see that natural order, that natural thing. Now, if Paul stopped at Ephesians 5:24, it would be easy for a Christian wife to feel that all her obligations were on her. If we just stopped at Ephesians 5:24, where the wives submit to the husband, then the wife would think, well, it's all on me. The obligation is all on me. Thankfully, though, Paul continues and shows what obligations the Christian husband has in the marriage. But the Christian wife still has her obligations. We have this. Both the husband and the wife are called to die to self. Submission is the way, and the wife doesn't. But we're both called, we have to die to ourselves, we have to deny ourselves. Jesus said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Both husband and wife are called to sacrifice. Submission is the way, the wife does it, through sacrifice. We're both called to self-sacrifice. So it's not just on the wife, the husband is called also to sacrifice. Both husband and wife are called to see their marriage as a model of Jesus' relationship with the church. Submission is how the wife honors that model. The church is submissive to Christ, and so wives are submissive to their husbands, and that's how it's done. Both husband and wife are called to honor the order of creation. We looked at those three reasons Paul gave. The order of creation. Man was created first, and then out of man was created the woman. And so that was the natural order that God ordained. So both husband and wife are called to honor that, and submission is the way the wife fulfills her place in that order of being the second that was created. All right, and so we look as Paul continues, all husbands are supposed to love, wives are being subjected to their own husbands in everything. Paul says that the wife should be subject to her husband in everything. And so we ask the question, does everything mean everything? Does everything mean everything? Are there any exceptions to everything? Are there some exceptions to Brother Mike?
As we were reading over in 1 Peter, it talked about our individuals are supposed to submit to man's ordinances and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when we come to Acts chapter 4 or Acts chapter 5, you see an exception to that, because here is the Sanhedrin who are in authority. They command Peter, James, and other of the apostles not to preach in Jesus' name. And so Peter's response was, well, should we obey you or the Lord? So here's a case where those in delegated authority cannot usurp the authority of the one who put them in that authority.
Yes, sir.
And so to commit sin, as Peter and John were being commanded to do, they shouldn't do that because they didn't have the authority to command that.
Yeah, and so the exception, like we said, it's better for us to what? To obey God rather than obey man. Peter said, we can't stop. God gave us this commission to go preach, and we can't do it. Whether you put us in jail, whether you whoop us, whether you lock us up, whatever you do, and command us not to do it, they turn right around, we go right back how to do it. Because a higher authority told us to do it. So in that sense, they were going to be in subjection to Christ rather than to man. But there's some things that when
I'm just gonna say, there you go back to that order that you put in place, God is Christ, the husband and the wife is the children. So if the husband is doing something that's contrary to God's law, who's above him, then you are to obey God.
yeah,
So it goes right back to that.
go back up to the top.
Keeping things in power, like for the
Yeah, so there are some exceptions here to everything. We can't, the wife can't do things if she's the husband can't do things that cause the wife to expect her to commit sin. She can't do that. What if the husband is demanding that the wife, the husband is going to, remember Ananias and Sapphira? They conspired to lie to the Holy Spirit. Sapphira said, Ananias, we should go in there and tell Peter them that we gave all of this to, we just need to go in there and just put it in our gift. Now, let don't go there and share that lie. But she co-signed with her husband, and guess what? She suffered the penalty of death. Her husband died. She came in saying the same thing, and she died as well. So now, your husband is going to take some little creative loopholes on your taxes, on your 1040. And then he said,
I need you to sign it. You know that's a lie. And there's no statement at the end of that attachment form that said, to the best of your knowledge, you are certified that this is truthful and honest. And your husband wants to wipe his out. Hey, come on. Everybody does it. Everybody does this. You know, the likelihood that we get audited is one and so many. You try to get your wife to commit sin. You got to honor God in that situation. What if your husband is medically incapacitated? What if he's mentally incapable? Does she still have to submit everything? If your husband's not in his right mind, not able to function, not able to do what he's supposed to do? What if your husband is physically abusive? It's a threat to the safety of the wife and the children. What's the wife to do? What about breaking the bond of marriage and adultery? Is the wife bound to that? No. Because he severed the relationship and she's not subject to that. You being physically abusive doesn't give you the right to divorce. But you better get some safety. You better get your kids in some safety. You can't be in that because the husband is breaking his responsibility by being abusive to you and doing those things. Because the Bible told the husband to do what to the wife? Told her to love him. So that's not love. Doing that kind of stuff of being abusive and physically abusive and threatening to the wife, that's not love. So she can't stay and survive under that kind of situation. Or the husband is mentally incapacitated, mentally not able to make rational decisions and stuff like that. Then that's not everything. Yes, brother. But when
To continue on with Ephesians 5, Brother Craig, it talks about how we are to love our lives. As Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it.
we come into that. We come into that. We're going there. Yes, we're going there. But yeah, so to be subject to everything, there are some exceptions. When the husband asks or expects his wife to sin, husband is medically incapacitated, husband is physically abusive, adultery, we understand some of those things. The simple command of Christian husbands is to love your wife. Husbands, love your wives. That is a command. Husbands, love your wives. Paul's words to Christian husbands safeguard his previous words to the wives. Wives be submission, but husbands do what? Love your wives. Though wives are to submit to their husband, it never excuses husbands acting as tyrants over their wives. Even though they say, and being all of them want to bump their chest. You got to be submissive, yeah, but you got to be loving. Stop being a tyrant. Stop being the mean mug in the house and walking around like you King Kong, and King Kong ain't got nothing on you. You are not King Kong. You are supposed to love your wife. So yes, she's supposed to be submissive, but you're supposed to love her. And so you're not supposed to act in such a way to put her in these bad situations because you demanding submission, but you're not going to love her. According to 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7, God has given us the spirit of power, but also of love. Power in their Christian life is always to be exercised in love. It's not just naked raw power. It's not power of a dictator, of a tyrant. It's not the idea of a man who arrogates to himself certain rights and tramples upon his wife's feelings and so on, and sits in the home as a dictator. That's not the model here. No husband is entitled to say that he is the head of the wife unless he loves his wife. So the reign of the husband is to be a reign and a rule of love, and it is the leadership of love. So you can't be the husband and have the wife be in submission if you're not going to operate in love. If you're not going to operate in love, you cannot be the leader unless you're going to do it, because Paul said, husbands, love your wives. Love your wives. Paul uses that Greek word agape. And so we see that there are the 4 words for love. We have eros, the exotic, the erotic love, that is the desire, based on desire and physical desire. Storge, the love that you have within your family, the family relationship. Filial, brotherly love, and friendship. We have friendship, brotherly love, and then agape has to do with the mind. Now, Paul said agape, the highest love of the mind. Now, what Paul, Brother Greg, assumes is that those other loves already are present. He assumed that you already are friends. You have feelings. He already assumes that you have family love. Paul already assumes that there is some erotic love there. And so he doesn't mention those, he mentions agape because he already assumes that those other loves are present. So we need them all. Now, had men, talked to men, in relationships, loved their wives, can't stand it. Your word. I love her, can't stand it. I love her, don't like her. So, what are they really saying, Greg? I love her, I'll go to work, I'll provide, I'll make sure there's a wife, a roof over her head, I'll make sure she has what she needs, but I don't want to spend no time with her. I don't want to have no companionship. I don't want to go to the movies with you. I don't want to go get a coffee. I don't want to hold your hand. I don't want to even act like we together. But I'll do these other things. I love you enough to do that, but I don't like you. Had a friend of mine that I used to work with, and she said her husband came down one day and he said, I don't like you. He was willing to hang in there as a husband to, go to work and do those things, but one day he just came down and goes, I really don't like you. I don't like you. No fit, no friendship. No friendship. No friendship. So Paul assumes that those other ones are there. And the thing is, we need them all. We need them all. We need to be friends. We need to be companions. We need to want to spend time with each other and each other's company. And we need to have fun and enjoy each other and be able to laugh and joke and do all those things. We need to have those so that the agape can be there. But you can't just do the agape and just do that stuff, but then don't have none of the other stuff there. That's not loving your wife. That's just, we just getting along. We just, as Brother Owens, when he came here, he said, how y'all doing? Y'all just making it? We just making it. How y'all doing? We just making it. Do you want to drive a car that's just making it? How long is that gonna last? How you car? It's just making it. That's how we are in a relationship. We make it. We good. We're not great. We're not bad. We're all right. Yeah, Brother John.
Brother, that's in this situation right here. Before a husband and wife get married, when they dating, they do some of everything. And when they get married, there's some of those things that they used to do that spark the relationship. It kind of dwindles. And then when family come along, children and all that other stuff come along, then that takes a lot of the flame out of it. But you got to rekindle the things that you used to do. Even though you got children, you just got to find a decent babysitter that you can trust and try to reignite those things, so you can say, I love my wife, but they shouldn't be.
But yeah, we get your point. We feel where you're coming from. We on the track. We feel where you're driving the train here. But so we've got to have this. We can't say that we, as Paul said, to love our wives if you don't even like your wife? And then the other question is, why don't you like your wife? What happened? Did you do something? Did she do something? Y'all just didn't do something? Brother Mike.
I could see that situation in their culture in the first century where you've got arranged marriage, where it's not like, in our culture, we find somebody that we like, whereas they're kind of almost forced to marry somebody that they don't even hardly know. So then you have scripture like Titus to teach women to learn to love their husbands. Why you gotta teach somebody to love their husband? Because of that culture, I believe, that existed at that time.
That's the problem. All right, our culture is a furnace. Heats up quickly, cools off the rest of the time. Heats up quickly, yeah, we get together, instant sparks, heats up furnace, fire hot. What happens? Okay, that culture put people together. Fathers, families, put people together. Of course, when they get together, no, they didn't love each other. They didn't even like each other. But over time, as Titus said, they learned to love. And so, over time, guess what? These ones that get together, they heat up, and they fall apart tomorrow. Because the people, what? They don't learn to love. The initial attraction, oh yeah, boom, 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 and then it falls apart. So in that culture, when they put those people together, they had to learn how to love each other. And as they get a good movie that illustrates this, if you ever get a chance, watch Fiddler on the Roof. Watch the movie. If you ever watched Fiddler on the Roof, the lead character, Tevye, and his wife. Now, they're reminiscing because they did it the old way, the arranged marriage, and they're looking at them. Their daughters are of this new generation that are wanting to marry for love. They don't want the arranged marriage because, Tevye is trying to get one of his daughters married to the butcher. He's a good man and he'll take care of me. He's got everything up, but no, she loves her daughter. This daughter loves the guy that's the little tailor. And she wants to run off and marry him. They want to do the modern way for love. So him and his wife have this dialogue in the middle of it where they talk about it's a kind of a musical. They're in different spaces, and she's talking about, yeah, I didn't like him when I first met him. And he's like, yeah, I didn't like her when I first met him, and I didn't love him. And I had to wash the clothes and do all this, and yeah, I had to go cook and do all this stuff. But they talk that over time. Guess what happened? They learn to love each other. And as they look down, they say, yeah, I do love him. And he said, yeah, I do love her. Because what? They didn't start out, but they came together and they learned to love. They learned to have that companionship. So that was that culture. But today we want married for love. How long will they last? Because that transfer doesn't happen. See, the other way they put them together, so they had to learn how to what? Kind of become friends, become companions, and then over time that durative love kicked in, and then that love took over. But you have to go through those stages. A lot of times we hit on the erotic, but we don't develop filial, and we don't get story. And so we ride on the erotic, and guess what? Erotic does what? Flames out. Flames out. You get older in life. Can't do things like you used to do. But you can still love each other. You can still have that companionship. You can still have all those things that will keep you together. But when people, I don't like her, she don't look good, she don't appeal to me erotically no more, I'm done. But if those other ones were there, there would still be something to hang on to. That's something that will keep you going. So Paul said, husbands, love your wives, assumes that those other loves are there and present. And so now he he's strictly speaking about agape, a love of the mind. It's not simply emotion. See, erotic is emotional or family. Like, okay, we're family. Because guess what happened? Guess what happened with family? Even with Stargate. There are people that grew up, they had love. Okay, yeah, you my brother, but I don't like you. Tell me some of y'all don't like your brother and sister. Yeah, we family. I help him out, but I don't like him. We got Stargate. Yes, he's my brother. We grew up in the same house, and if he died, I help him, but we don't got video because we're not friends. And just because you grew up in the same house with them folks, Greg, some of them folks you ain't friends with. We're brothers. We're family. Yeah, you family. You my brother, but I don't like you. I don't trust you. We ain't friends. That's filial. Yeah, but Greg.
Greg, I got 1,000 things to say, but I'm just giving you one. It's one of those things where one of these you can perform independently of the other. The others you cannot. And so he went to the highest form one because that one I can perform independent of the other person, and it does not matter how they behave, what they do, and you know what they give in response to all this kind of thing. Because some people, you know, get into marriages and they just start for whatever reason acting irrational, crazy, whatever you want to call it, and make it very difficult. Those other loves require something of both parties coming together in order to create them and to bring something to the table. If I'm going to have a friendship with you, we both got to come and we have to work toward that.
Bible said, if anybody gonna be friendly, that's what be friendly.
Absolutely. And yet the one that is what God utilized in order to send Jesus, that great love, obviously that one I can perform, I can do, independent of the other person, because now I'm imitating God in doing so. And not only that, I can do that and then find out what is required of me in this particular relationship, and I can perform those things, even if it's free of an emotion, because the other person is not allowing us to be friendly.
I'm finna go down there with Michael.
Yeah, to me, agape is the glue. Because they can't act independent of the other. I mean, God tells us to love our enemies. Are we friends with our enemies?
We don't have video.
We have filial. We have any of the other love? No. I mean, if you got an arranged marriage like they did in this culture, a lot of them. I'm not saying all of them. Right?
Yeah.
That those other ones may not be here. God is telling you, you got to agape your wife. You have to agape your husband. Those other ones can come later.
Yeah.
You know, when you work with people, you know, a lot of people get into relationships because they work with each other for a long time. At first, they couldn't stand each other. Next thing you know, they're married. Why? Because they became friends. But you know, so that can happen down the line.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So yeah, good. I'm getting ready to go down that road. You know, so strictly speaking, agape is love of the mind, and even some now we say that God's love, but it's really not God's love. God's love is even above agape, because in the Bible, go to John. Let's go to John. Go to John 3:19. Go to John 3:19. John 3:19. Let's look at a couple of texts. John 3, verse 19. And then somebody read John. Okay, yeah, then 1 John 2:15. So John 3:19. And then 1 John. So
And this is the condemnation that light is coming to the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil.
okay, all right, 1 John chapter 2 and 15. John 2:15.
Love not the world, even the things that are in the world. And may love the world and love the Father is not in him.
Okay, all right. See, men love darkness and they love the world. And I think the translation, the word with that word love is agape in their mind. They love darkness and they love the world. So God's love has to be even above that. We say, well, God's love is even transcends that, because God loved us, as Paul says, when we were what? Without strength. In due season, God sent his son to die. His love even encompassed that. It even goes surpassing that, even the mental love. We can't even comprehend and fathom the love that God has for us. So it's even beyond that. It is a love that loves without caring. Go to the next slide. It's a love that loves without caring. It is self-giving love that gives without demanding or expecting repayment, like Greg said. So there's other love, friendship. We expect some repayment. We expect some remuneration. We expect, I like you, you like me, we get along. But this agape doesn't need that. It's a love so great that it can be given to the unlovable and unappealing. So that's when you're in that situation, when the wife ain't acting right, or when you're dwelling with somebody, you're a believer, she's not a believer, but they still going to stay in the marriage, but they're not acting right, you can still love them, even if they're not acting right. Yes, but great.
And it requires action.
Yeah.
It's active, because you think about God loving us. He loved us, and we were in an unlovable state. There was nothing we were offering. In fact, we were hostile toward it. But his love demanded action, and so Christ came. If I have a wife, and even though my wife may not be acting the way I think she ought to act, that agape love demands action of me to still perform those things that God requires in order to actually manifest that love.
Yep, and as Brother Eric Warren stood right here and said, nowhere in the Bible do we see God move away from man. What does God do? He moves toward man. Even when man is acting out, and when man is out of, as he talked about those three circles, when he's out of communion, God still moves toward us. He still moves toward us, trying to get us what? Trying to call us out of the middle, and get us back into communion so that we don't fall into condemnation. God's still moving toward us. And so when we love like that, we still move toward the unlovable. Even when they're acting unlovable, we still move to them. We don't see the other kind of love. If it's friendship love, you ain't doing stuff that makes me feel friendly toward you. I get away from you. Or you're not doing stuff that makes me feel erotic toward you. Get away from you. Or any of those other things. But agape, we still move toward the person, even if some of those other things are not present. It's a love that loves even when it is rejected. Even when you're rejected, it still loves. Agape love gives and loves because it wants to. It does not demand or expect repayment. Like 1 Corinthians 13, love doesn't keep score. Love doesn't expect to be paid back. Right? And so it doesn't get repayment from the love given. It gives because it loves, and it does not love in order to receive. That's agape. That's the love that Paul says we need to love our lives with. We can read this passage and think Paul is saying, husbands, just be kind to your wives, or husbands, be nice to your wives. There's no doubt that for many marriages, this would be a huge improvement. Some marriages, that would be just for your husband to be kind. Just for him to show some niceness would be a huge improvement in a lot of marriages. Because a lot of marriages, the husband's not kind and he's not nice. So, but Paul is not asking us just to be kind. Husbands, be nice to your wives. Husbands, be kind to your wives. Paul is here. This isn't what Paul wrote about. What he really meant is husbands continually decide to practice self-denial for the sake of your wife. That's what he's asking us to do. To deny ourselves and love our wives. Because guess what? Christ did that for the church. He denied himself. He emptied himself. Scriptures talk about it. Let this mind be in you. He didn't think it was robbery. He emptied himself, poured himself out, what? For the church, so that he could purchase the church and do that. So our husbands, we're looking at that same thing. All right, so the standard and example of a Christian's husband love, just as Christ also loved the church, just as Jesus loved the church. It is possible that somebody might say, how can I love such a wife as I had? It might not be supposable and capable. We can do it as Christ loved the church. Christ loved us, what? Even when we were in sin, even when we were out straight, Christ loved us. He didn't wait till we got lovable and then start loving us. He loved us when we was unlovable. Christ never stopped loving. Even when man turned against him, even when man sinned, Christ never stopped. God never stopped loving man. He never put us aside. He never separated us. He just keeps coming to us, trying to get us to come back and communion with him. He kept on loving us. So we are to love our wives just like that. Just as Christ also loved the church. It demonstrates Jesus' love, that Jesus loves his church with a special love. Jesus loves the world and died for the world, but just as husbands can have a general love for everybody else, we must also have a special love for our bride. That love is special, yes.
And Craig, I'm just thinking about the characteristics of God's attributes. It demands that.
Yeah.
You know, Romans 2, verse 4, his long suffering, his forbearance, and all those things, and the goodness of God leads you to repentance. It's just his nature, his characteristics, his attributes that will have him opening up that opportunity for us to always reconcile.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me go ahead and bring this to a close. So Christ loved the church and he gave himself for her. And so we look at the difference and the contrast. Worldly headship says, I'm your head, so you take your orders from me and must do whatever I want. Where godly leadership says, I'm your head, so I must care for you and serve you. Worldly submission says, you must submit to me, so here are the things I want you to do for me. Godly submission says, you must submit to me, so I am accountable before God for you. I must care and serve you. So that's what it means. We'll close here. When we love and we do what Christ wants, it's not so much that the thrill of that we getting somebody to submit. Some husbands just, I got somebody, they had their family. Maybe they didn't have this in anywhere in their life, but all of a sudden they get a family. You know what, Greg? They all of a sudden realize they got some people that got to do what they say. I got a wife, they got to do what they say. And when they get some kids, I got them. And everybody gonna do what I say and listen to me. Maybe somehow in life they felt left out. Maybe nobody ever listened to them. Maybe nobody ever gave them. But all of a sudden they get a family, and it's like nobody else will ever listen to me in the world. But I got these people that gotta listen to me because I'm the head of the house and they in my house, and I'm doing every thing for them and taking care of them. So everybody gotta listen to me. And that's how they act. I got a wife, I got somebody now to boss around, and then when the kids come, I got some more little folks to buy, and that's how they live. They live to boss everybody around, expect everybody to give submission to them. But when we love, we understand not only do they submit, we're accountable. We have accountability. We're to love them because now we're accountable. They serve us, and we are to serve them, and we're accountable to them. That's a heavy responsibility that God has placed on us as husbands. So that's why we're supposed to love our wives. That's why wives are supposed to submit to us. And wife won't have any problem submitting when she have a man that she knows is accountable for her, that's protecting her, that's loving her, that's serving her just as much as she's serving him. Then we have the model that Christ wants us to have. So there's much more that could be said. We could break down. We go down into that further part of that text, and then he sanctified it, and then while the washing of the regeneration of the word, that's a whole nother, we can do a whole nother 3 or 4 weeks just on that part of the text. But I think we have enough that we understand. Reclaiming marriages and understanding that submission. We submit to one another. Wives submit to their husband. Husbands have a great responsibility to love and care for our wives. Hope this has been helpful. It's been good to go through this, and so hope you enjoyed this. I know it's been several weeks, but hope as we broke this down into infinite little sections that we got something out of that. And so now you look at this text